Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Shelby Olischlager. My mission here is to help entrepreneurs make a difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. Join me today where we dig deep with our guests to give you the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. Today, our special guest is Andrew Lee. So I just want to give you a nice, big, warm welcome, Andrew. Thank you for joining us. To get started, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. Um, I am, I guess, like quote unquote serial entrepreneur. I mean, I don't really like that term, but I currently manage or I currently own and operate two businesses. My primary one is a social media marketing agency. We specialize in servicing restaurants and hospitality clients. And then my newest one is actually going to be a virtual staffing agency where we're focusing in on being able to staff designers and like basically anybody in the creative industry. And, in this new remote world, it's really, I guess, giving people the opportunity to connect with workers outside of, their local area. And then just like giving those workers obviously opportunities to work with, cooler brands as well.
Awesome. So what made you want to get into this type of field?
Which one?
Well, let's start with your agency. Let's start with the social media.
Sure. So the social media agency, like we've been operating for almost 10 years now. It kind of started out of the blue between my partner and I as almost a side hustle that, slowly grew to the size of actually needing our full-time attention, and then continuing from there, scaling it and then building out a team. And then, here we are now, like almost a decade later. That one happened pretty organically. I would say it was at the beginning of when Instagram was starting to get really popular in like the B2 or in the business space.
Mhm.
So we really capitalized on, just that opportunity to utilize it for restaurant and hospitality clients.
Mhm.
Um, with the virtual staffing, that actually it came about organically as well because I was trying to solve for a problem for my social media company. I was running into, just headaches with staffing, building out teams, finding the right just personnel in
Mhm.
general. And then when COVID happened, the whole lockdown happened, I realized that, hey, I don't need to be limited by, my geographical location. I could think broader. I could think outside of the box. I can even go like, overseas. So then I started to assemble my own team with that kind of methodology. And then from there, it was like, hey, this works. I feel like a lot of other business owners could benefit from something like this too. But then looking online, I saw that the current options were like, hey, you can go to Fiverr, potentially get somebody really good or somebody really bad. Like you don't really know because it's like hit or miss, like because you're essentially just picking up freelancers, along the way. But there was no like real service to help you like recruit and staff somebody that was essentially vetted for you. So that sparked the idea, and we just started to run with it. And my partners and I have been slowly building up that business as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's cool, just like that natural progression of you filling that void, true entrepreneur
Yeah.
spirit. um, has there been any sort of challenges that have been surprising that you faced as you've been going through this process?
Uh, no major challenges. I think it's more about like making sure that we have the right like plan in place before we, like jump like feet first or head first or whatever the saying is.
Yeah.
Um, my partners are very much about like if we're gonna do it, let's do it right the first time. Like we're not gonna throw out a bunch of different like MVPs and try to see what's gonna work and what's gonna test the waters. So a
Mhm.
lot of time was spent on like the due diligence and the research to make sure that hey, when we launch this, we're able to actually hit the target market that we want and find the clients that we want. And then also like internally able to support whatever, that demand is gonna take.
Right, right. So going back a little bit to the social media, I'm curious,
Mhm.
um, when you're getting these clients, like how has that experience been for you with you growing your own agency? Because I know a lot of people have taken that road. So how was that journey for you building up that?
It was fun. I mean, in the early days, me and my partner, we were involved in every little step of the way, but then it comes a time in every single business where you need to step back. You need to hire out, delegate, start building a team. And
Mhm.
then, that comes with its own struggles, right? Because you have to find a way to properly train. You have to find a way to properly put in checks and balances and processes that ensure that your output is still the same as if you were to do it yourself.
Mhm.
And then, like as you get even larger, now like you're even further separated from the day-to-day work. So how do you still, oversee this organization? It's funny because like I can say that I'm in the social media space, but realistically, like my day to day has nothing to do with social media, right? Like my day to day is more operational based, management based. Like how do
Mhm.
you keep this machine running?
Right. And how has that been for you? Like, how have you been able to overcome those obstacles of trying to scale and grow while also keeping yourself involved and on top of the process?
I think it's like it's a combination of things. I think a lot of it is, kind of idealistic because you have like an end vision of what you imagine your team to be,
Mhm.
but then you have to break that down. Like, what steps does it take to get there? What kind of trainings do I have to put into place? What kind of documentation? What kind of tools can I actually roll out for them to make their job easier? I'm very much of the mindset of, let's empower the team. Let's develop them. Like, if you build a strong team, then you're going to have a strong company overall, and like you ultimately like you have happy workers too because they're getting value from what they're doing, right? Like I don't want to build a team that just comes in, clocks out, just does exactly what I say, and
Mhm.
then collects a paycheck. Like I don't think that's going to foster a long term relationship and a long term growth. So I would say a lot of my attention over the past few years have been just focused on, how do you, I guess, create that company culture
Mhm.
and like that structure to hopefully develop better people and just to do better overall.
Yeah. So, what within that experience has there been one really key thing that you've noticed that worked?
uh Honestly, I would say in the beginning we micromanaged more than we intended to, just because like this was what was working, so like let's keep doing it this way.
Mhm.
um I wouldn't necessarily say like this was an issue or anything, but when I started to allow the team to contribute their own ideas, like that kind of opened up the thought process some more. Um, like it was, hey, here's a problem. This is how we normally address it. But if you have a better idea or a way of addressing it, then please let me know and then we can discuss it. It comes down to how do you leverage your team's strengths? Because everyone's going to bring different strengths to the table, different experiences, especially because they're coming from outside industries, outside companies, and whatnot. So it's like it's narrow-minded to think that your way is the only way to do it. So while I can say that, hey, this is how we normally do things, like I am open to hearing what everybody else has to say so that we can continue to improve upon it and then do something even better. And then every once in a while, there's an idea that just comes out of, left field, like, wow, like we never thought about that. Like that's a great thing to do. So let's test it out. And if it works, then let's roll it out across the rest of the team. And then all of that kind of ties back to the development piece too, because now the team members feel like they are genuinely invested in the company because they have been able to contribute their own ideas.
Hmm. I remember, I think I heard it the other day with someone I was talking to that they said that Google gives their employees like 20 or 30% of their time to do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
I've heard
what,
that one.
yeah, it's like the same idea where they're building that creativeness where, like then those are the new ideas and the innovation comes from. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
we
it's,
actually sorry,
no,
I was just going to quickly say like we actually rolled out like a new incentive program, which was essentially like touching upon letting them find areas of value. So not to say like I'm going to give you homework and you do this and you get credit for it, but more like if you identify a potential area that you want to improve or like a training that you think the team should benefit from, then
Mhm.
I'm going to give you credit for that. And then like all of that credits kind of rolled into like the end of year like incentive program. So if essentially like I'm going to pay you out for the extra credit that you're doing for the business, like outside of your normal day-to-day work.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure people love that and it's a good idea. So is that kind of the same idea that like what you're doing with this new business of trying to fill that gap of recruit these people recruiting people? Is that also part of it?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, with the new business, it was more about hiring and recruiting is just a headache. So if I
Yeah.
if I can help simplify that, if you think about like traditional hiring process, whoever is the hiring manager has to like go post up on a job bulletin, then do a bunch of interviews, and then once they find the right person, they have to do the onboarding procedures. Go through HR, go through all the documentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, there are staffing agencies out here that do that as well for like U.S. based workers. So the need that I'm feeling is essentially like a hybrid model. Like I'm taking the staffing agency model, but then applying it to like international workers as well.
Mm.
But then I'm going to try to vet them, accordingly. So that way, if you are in need of a designer, if you are in need of a, video editor, you don't have to just go to Upwork or Fiverr or just hope to find somebody on your own. Like, you can come to us and then we will help secure that person for you.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that being really helpful because in my own experience with Fiverr, it's like you said, it's such a hit or miss with who you're going to find.
Yeah. Yeah, like you never really know, right? Like, yeah, you can see portfolios and everything, and that's still the normal like vetting process, but then there's nobody there to watch your back. Like, you're really just one to one with the person that you pick. Versus with us, we have like an on-call recruitment team like to back you. So if we assign you with somebody and you're just not happy with their work, then okay, no harm, no foul. Like, we'll find you somebody else. Like, you're not going to get charged anything extra for it or anything. Like, our job here is to try to find you the right person for your team.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's really important for sure because yeah, like if you're paying and then all of a sudden you're not happy, it's like, well, who's going to help me with this type thing?
Right. Like, oh, I have to go back and do my own like research again to find somebody else. Like, it restarts the entire headache.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. I want to go back to a little bit of the social media marketing. Do you have
Sure.
anything like with some of your clients that you've dealt with and have been helping with that? You said it's more restaurant themed businesses. Has there
hmm
been one key thing that you notice among all your clients that you wish that more people were aware about as far as their social media?
Uh, I mean, I think you have to actually try to be authentic. I mean, like, let me break that down. So, social media works when it's like, truly quality, organic, authentic content,
Mm,
right? Yes, companies will often hire out teams. That's completely fine because they don't have the bandwidth to do so. But when you hire out teams, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can just completely be disconnected from what's happening and like let them run on their own, because then you lose out on that like authenticity piece of it.
mhm,
I'll use TikTok as a perfect example. Um, with TikTok, especially with like brick and mortar stores, it's great to see like workers in it. It's great to see like employees in it because it brings like a level of like a personal touch to it.
mhm,
But if I was running TikTok for, let's say, a restaurant client and they never want their employees in it, they don't even want us to be in the restaurant, like they kind of just like package us the food and make us shoot it in a studio, then it feels very disconnected. So I would say that for like restaurant clients, like when they pick up social media, like, yes, it's the easy one to go about first because it's low hanging fruit. Like, there's no cost of entry to start doing social media, but like you actually do have to put a conscious effort into it and like be involved with it. So even if you are hiring out a team, like when the team's asking you questions about, what kind of strategies you want to do, then be involved. Like, don't just be like, hey, do whatever you want. Like, I'm just paying you to take care of it, kind of thing. While you can do that, it's just going to end up with like mediocre results and you're not going to get like the return on investment that you're looking for.
mhm. That makes sense. Do you find people like they actually don't, like you said, that they kind of don't want to do that? What do you think is the reason for that, where people are scared to put the more authentic self out online?
I don't know if it's a fear thing. I think it's more like it's not a priority for them. So if you think about like a client as an operator, like I am just an operations person. I'm going to run this restaurant or this, whatever it is. So marketing is just another piece that I need to add to the overall puzzle. But like it's not a priority for me. I'm more focused on like my staffing. I'm more focused on like my food costs, my actual store running, but I know I need marketing. So let's just add it on. Like, think of it almost like a utility. I have to have electricity, I have to have gas, I have to have some kind of marketing. So they just don't put the focus on it. I think that's where a lot of the disconnect stems from. It's not necessarily that, hey, they don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. They have other things going on, and I mean that's why they're
Yeah,
hiring you, right?
no, exactly. Like, and that's completely fine. It's just, if you want to get it to the next level, then you would have to be more involved.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So with your social media, I'm curious for people listening, if someone wants to maybe reach out, what would your ideal client look like? Like who are the people that you're trying to attract to work with?
Uh, I personally I like a client who has maybe a few different locations or concepts under their belt. So let's say like a restaurant group that has maybe like a few restaurants. Reason for that is because at that size, it shows me that they have enough structure to actually like get things done and actually be organized. Because when you're working with like an individual owner, it sometimes gets chaotic because they're just too busy for you. But like at the size of a restaurant group, then they probably have somebody that kind of oversees marketing. They probably have somebody that oversees these other things. So you have very clear like points of contact for things. But then they're also not too big. So there's a lot of opportunity to have fun with it, a lot of opportunity to grow. Like if I picked up Chipotle, for instance, like Chipotle is, enormous. Like they're going to have so many like rules and guidelines and restrictions. And ultimately, like you can only move the bar so far on a large brand like that. But like something a little smaller, like it gives you the opportunity to play with it, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. You get the freedom to use your own skills and your own.
Yeah. Like you have enough power there to actually do something, but like you have the freedom to do so because you're not like restricted by other corporate guidelines yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. The one thing you mentioned that I'm kind of curious about, you just said of like the contact, being in contact with them. Is there any things like that you use that really work to help with your communication with your clients?
You mean like tools, like strategies, or
Yeah, and like how you're able to get your points across or your visions and just have like that relationship where you're both on the same mission. Like has there been anything that's really helped you with that?
uh so I guess coming at it from two different points. From like a relationship building standpoint, like one of our primary objectives is that like let's build a strong relationship with our clients because ultimately if they trust us, then they're like we're gonna be able to do better work for them. Like they're not gonna want to micromanage us. They know that we're on the same page with them and thinking about their best interest.
Nice.
So a huge component of that is building that rapport. Like I tell all of my team, like all the client facing people that your job here is to like build the relationship with the client and keep the client happy. It's not necessarily about delivering each item on the scope because that's going to come after. If the client doesn't like you from the very beginning, then it's going to be a rocky, road ahead. Um, with that though, like there does need to be like you have to keep it professional still. You have to keep it like very direct and stern at a point because when it becomes too casual or if you're too like lax about it, then you're never going to get anything done. Like ultimately, we are here to service you, but then we do need your approvals, your feedback on certain things to move forward. So, like with that kind of stuff, you just have to be direct, right? Hey, if you can't give me this answer by Friday at 3 p.m., then this is not going to go out, period. Like otherwise, you run into situations where, oh, I've been chasing you, you've been busy, but now you turn around and tell me that like I'm in trouble because I didn't get the thing out, but like I can't blame you because you're the client ultimately.
Mhm.
So I do think like while we try to create like a very positive and like like friendly atmosphere, like you have to be able to like push for the direct answer when you need to and be able to navigate that accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Just to make them as well accountable. Because I've heard this saying where it's kind of like you're throwing the monkey on someone else's back. Like you're kind of giving it back to them to be like, okay, you want me to do this, but also
Yeah.
you have to put your work in order for it to actually work, right?
No, exactly. Like I'm here to help you, but the ball's in your court right now. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to give me you got to give me what I need first before I can run with it.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I want to ask for anyone listening that is starting their own agency and they want to build their clientele, do you have any advice for those people that are just starting off or anything that you really learned that you wish you knew sooner?
Uh, just find ways to bring value. I mean, I guess this extends beyond like media agencies. Just like if you're going to do any kind of service model, you have to find ways to bring value because ultimately a service model is going to be one to one. It's very relationship based, but then if you're not doing something of value for them, why are they going to keep you on? So like if that value takes the shape of certain deliverables, a certain like production thing, or maybe it's just like an idea, like maybe you are a strategy, like you're maybe you are a major strategist and like all you do is pump out documentation to help them like build strategies, like that's fine too. Like you really just need to hone in on like what's valuable, but then also think about it from like the stance of the client. Like it's not what's valuable to you, it's do they find value in it, because now you have to address the consumer side of it, right? Because you can think whatever you're building is the most amazing service or offering ever, but if you can't find a single person to pay for it, then it's really not that valuable. So I think it's being just real about what you're trying to build. Like it can sound really cool to say, I'm going to build this huge production company that's going to make these commercials and everything, but can you find a single person who will pay you for those commercials? So once you find that person, then hone in on that. Like, hey, can I make this into a specialty, or can I expand and scale this into like an entire business?
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's the value proposition that comes, or it comes down to the value proposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that because I feel like you can relate that to any sort of person that's trying to be their own solo entrepreneur or do something. Like, even if you're a speaker, it's like, can you speak and deliver that message to one person, and will they pay
Yeah,
you for it? And then once you have that, then it's like, okay, then you can kind of take it and run with it a little bit more.
yeah. And like just thinking off of that right now, like I would say another tip is don't dive into it until you actually know you can make a sale. Like I feel like a lot of people go and try to build their whole company, make a logo, make an amazing website, like get their license and everything, but like they haven't made a single sale yet.
Mm.
So prove that you can actually make money on it first and then build the structure after the fact.
Yeah, I like that. I think so many people get caught up with like the technology aspect or trying to build the perfect thing, the perfect funnel, the perfect
Yeah.
site. And then it's like,
There,
okay,
it never goes anywhere, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because, yeah, and I mean, even as far as technology goes, I feel like that's a huge handicap for a lot of people. So they're trying to figure all that out. And it's like, you're not actually
Yeah.
doing the main point. The main point is to sell. So once you get the sale, then you can do the.
Exactly, exactly. Like you can Frankenstein together some kind of solution, but make the sale first to show
Mhm.
that you can actually sell this item or sell this service.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely people get caught up in like that exciting, making it look pretty and whatnot. So yeah, I think Liz, do you have any sort of things as far as the media that I think you kind of already touched on it, but any sort of like shocking things that you've had to overcome that you didn't really expect to be a challenge?
Uh, Let me think on this. Uh, I mean, I don't think it was a shock per se, but like you have to be willing to commit quite a lot of time.
Hmm.
Um, like, I mean, especially coming from, like a normal job and everything. And with a normal job, it's very, you're working for what, 9 hours a day, 9 to 5, 8 to whatever. Like,
Hmm.
but when you start going towards building your own business, like the business becomes your life.
Hmm.
There really is no disconnect I mean, of course, until you grow to a certain point, then you can kind of make a disconnect. But on like the early years, like it is your life. Like, and when I say that, I mean like everything. It's your personal life, it's your finances, like it's your home life. Like if you have like significant others, it affects them as well. So
Hmm.
just keeping that in mind because yeah, you have a goal, you're trying to get to it and like build this amazing company, but then what's the cost of that? Right? It's not just time. It's like how your partner feels or like the money that you're spending on it or the money that you're investing into it or just everything. Like so when you take something like this on, it's yeah, it sounds really cool. Yeah, it sounds like a dream, but then think about like the commitment and not just from like a financial standpoint. Like it's a full like life commitment into trying to build something.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like just that message because I feel like maybe people don't even think about that before they're starting. But I'm kind of curious, what was that transition like for you from going from the job to doing it on your own?
So honestly, like for the first 2, 3 years, I ran it as a side hustle. Like I still had a full-time job and I would just do it on the side or like during the day and at nighttime. Um, my partner would always, or my business partner, would always ask me, when are you gonna quit and then just come do this with me full time? And I always told him like, maybe when like the finances kind of hit a certain point where I make the same as what I'm making at my day job on my side job, like then it makes sense to transition over. And then he said something to me that actually stuck with me forever. And like this was kind of the motivating reason, but he told me that I was thinking about it the wrong way. Like, don't think about it from a financial standpoint. Think about what you would do with the extra 9 to 10 hours a day. Like, and if you can find a way to fill that gap, then make the transition because you don't want to just cut over and then just, sit around and watch TV for the extra 9, 10 hours a day. Like, you want to find something to fill it with, something of value to actually continue to like
Hmm.
deliver. Um, so that always stuck with me, like way back when. But then my actual transition happened because my company had layoffs. So I got laid off at that point, and then I was about to look for another job, but then I kind of just told myself, hey, this is the perfect time. Like I was unsure about making the jump over. I essentially got pushed out on my day job. So let's just try it. Let's try to see what I could build this with. Let's try to see what it looks like if I invest my full time and attention to it. And worst comes to worst, it doesn't work. I find another job and it stays as a side hustle. So that was kind of it. Like I was, admittedly a little nervous about jumping into it, but then looking back, like I'm grateful at the fact of being laid off because it pushed me into, or it pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
And it forced me to actually make this work because now it had to pay the bills, right? Like now I had to make it grow.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so cool actually, because I think that happens so much to so many people the last couple of years where they were forced in a position, but it actually ended up being something that was very good for them. And it was like it made them grow, like you said, outside of your comfort zone. And, like you can be thankful for that, right? Looking back at it. The one question I'd like to ask, just so
Mm-hmm.
you've gone from there, you're doing your own thing. What now is your next thing? Like, what's your next year look like ideally?
Uh, so my social company, Slick Media, is pretty much like we're steady, like we're steadily growing year over year. So like my attention and focus isn't as, I guess, on that. Um, I'm probably more focused on the virtual assistant business because we are still in the very early stages of it. Like I want to see where I can scale that to. So if we're going back to like just opportunity cost and everything, like, Slick is stable. Slick or my social company is stable. Like it's operating as is, good to go. I can check on it here and there, but I think most of my like mental capacity is being focused on building the new company just because that's still on like the early stages of its journey.
Mhm. So what exactly is that like? What are the things that you're focusing on to get that going?
Right now, it's sales funnel. It's a lot of the branding stuff. Going back to what I said earlier, yes, we already have clients. Yes, we already have sales. So like it's an already proven concept. Now it's just a matter of, taking it into the next step to actually like launch it properly. So we're looking at, just redoing the website, redoing branding assets, actually building out like a sales funnel on like Facebook ads and everything, and just kind of ironing out what that structure looks like to make it into an automated process.
Mm. Nice. I like that. I like the just you being very strategic with that approach and making sure like you have everything figured out. Like you said, ironing it out, I think is something that for at least myself, like I know that I've overmissed that before and it's been a huge obstacle to try and go back and refix the things instead of just, doing your due diligence. So I think that's definitely a super strong
Yeah.
message for people.
And then at a certain point, like you do have to kind of take the leap of faith. Like it's not to say you have to iron out 100% of it, like, but if you can get to like 70 or 80, then it's way better than jumping in like without knowing anything.
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing just for people listening, if they want to learn more from you and your business and find what you're going to be growing in the next years to come, where can they find you?
So the two business sites are slickmedia.com. That's spelled SLIQUEMEDIA. And that's my social media company if you need any assistance there. And then for the virtual staffing, it's withmycoffee.com. And then you can also find me and message me on LinkedIn as well. I'm always happy to chat.
Awesome. Sounds good. I'm just curious, what was it called? With My Coffee?
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Okay, kind of long but short story at the same time.
Okay.
So basically, on my social company, I was trying to find a way to stay ahead of my team. Short of doing like one-on-one meetings every single week or doing like a full status call every single week. So what I ended up creating was, hey, how about you send me like a weekly dashboard kind of email every Monday morning and just call out like the priority items. That way I can quickly assess and see if you need any help with anything. Instead of just calling it a Monday morning email, I got clever with it and I called it a with my coffee email because the joke was that I would read the email while drinking coffee every Monday morning. Then when it came to actually creating the virtual staffing business, me and my partners over there, we were brainstorming different ideas, kind of playing with the word like recruitment and staffing, and then everything just felt too like dull. So we started thinking just outside the box, and then we just started riffing, and then I threw in with my coffee because I just always liked that term. And then they loved it. So immediately they were like, hey, let's run with this. Like, it's a cool branding opportunity. We can play with like coffee cups or something. It's kind of clever, and it's not so on the nose. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh, we are a staffing agency called like something recruitment agency, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's something different. So that was kind of the long, short story of it.
Yeah. I actually love that. It is so clever. And I think it's like, yeah, it has some sort of appeal to it where it's just unique and like you said, not quite on the nose. Like it's good.
Thank you.
I like it. Yeah.
Hopefully it works out with the branding and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing that, and sounds like you got a really good thing going. So hopefully, people listening will check you out if they want to learn more and potentially work with you. And hope they reach out. So I just want
Thank
to
you.
say,
Appreciate it.
yeah, I just want to say thanks as well for sharing some of your story with us today. And it was a good conversation. So thank you.
No, thank you again. Great to be here.
Yeah, no problem.